Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
All right, welcome back. This is Wooden Sticks. I'm Kevin Gorg, and we are broadcasting from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Really looking forward to having a dear friend of mine on the show today. Just a wonderful hockey player, even better person off the ice. I mean that sincerely. Tony Granato, college hockey at Wisconsin, originally from Chicago, out of Downers Grove. Played for the Rangers, the Kings, the Sharks, coached all over the place, including the Avalanche, the Penguins, and most recently the Wisconsin Badgers head coach, now broadcasting in Chicago with the Hawks and also on the NHL Network. The connection is through his brother, Tony Granato. And Donnie moved to Burnsville. His family bought a house in the summer of 1984. And we were all set to graduate in 85. We had a real good team. Tom Osiki was our head coach. And the Granato family, being a hockey-first family, wanted to give one of their kids, if not maybe more, of their kids, the younger kids, a chance to play high school hockey in Minnesota and somehow get to the state tournament. So we were the benefactors of the Granatos buying a house in Burnsville. Donnie was one of our top skill players. I think he was our second line center, led us to that state championship. And through Donnie, I got to know Tony, and I've known Tony for almost 40 years. And so we're going to have some fun stories today. I'm going to let him tell most of them. I've got 2 quick ones on the front end of this podcast that we're not going to get to in our conversation that I have to share. So they both revolve around the time that Tony played in LA. So we're going back to the early 1990s. And Tony knew I was obsessed with the game of hockey, specifically Wayne Gretzky, like every other kid in North America. And Wayne Gretzky is his roommate with the Kings. And so back then they had roommates, and back then they still had morning skate. And so they're going to be at the Met Center playing the North Stars, and I connect with Tony and ask if I can come over and watch, take in morning skate and come down and see him and meet some of the guys. And Tony was always so very cordial when it came to stuff like this. So he said, yeah, call me at my hotel tomorrow morning when you're on your way, and I'll meet you at the gate, and I'll get you your pass, and, come on down. We'll have a good time. So I'm really excited. And I probably jumped the gun a little bit and called a little bit too early. And Tony wasn't in the room, and Wayne Gretzky was trying to sleep in. I think they had played and got in late. There was some kerfuffle. And bottom line is Gretzky was pissed. And he answered the phone, and I could tell he was half asleep. And right away, I got off to a rough start with the great one. We patched things up after practice because Tony was that guy. So I'll page forward now to, I want to say maybe, I don't know, a year later. I'm going to spend spring break in LA. The Kings have a couple of home games, and I'm super excited to go see Tony and watch the Kings at the old Forum. And it just so happened that Wayne Gretzky was injured. And so I go to the game on a Tuesday night, and then Wednesday they've got practice. So I'm going to come over, and they're keeping all their gear at the Forum. And then they're going to play another home game on Thursday before they leave town. So he says, come on over to practice. I thought that was pretty cool. And so it's kind of a casual practice, right? It's in between games. It's not, anything too serious. Might have even been an optional. Who knows? But the bottom line is Gretzky's not there. And I was really bummed that he wasn't playing in those games. So Tony's running around the locker room doing something, and we're going to grab a bite to eat after practice. And so I make the mistake of sitting in Wayne Gretzky's locker, and then I throw on the old Jofa. And I thought it was innocent enough at the time. Well, out comes Marty McSorley. And Marty McSorley doesn't know me from Adam. And he's like, who the F is this idiot? And he wasn't wrong. And so Tony had to come out and calm the waters. And so I pissed off Gretzky in Bloomington, and then I pissed off McSorley in LA, and Tony always had my back in all those situations. And we're gonna have a great time today. I'm chatting with just an awesome human being and a dear friend. So looking forward to that. We're gonna get into all the good stuff, prep school in Lake Placid, on to being with the Wisconsin Badgers in the heyday of college hockey. Bob Johnson, I believe, was the guy that recruited him. So lots of cool stuff today here on Wooden Sticks. And before I get to all that great stuff with Tony Granato, I got to mention that Andrew Height, we know him as Whitey, a longtime member of both the Minnesota Twins and the Minnesota Wild, is now running all of our advertising. Super excited that Whitey's a part of this. I want to make you a part of it as well, and he is the hook to get things done. So just make sure you have this email readily available. If you want to sponsor us or you know of anybody else that's looking to elevate their business, AHEYDT, Andrew Height, AHEYDT at talknorth.com. And also got to thank my guy, John Schweitz, who has been with us from the start, and say thank you to the Minnesota Masonic Charities. They do fabulous work here in the Twin Cities, from the Cancer Center to the Children's Hospital to the Masonic Home in Bloomington. Just a couple of examples of all the great work they do here to support us in Minnesota. They are the largest fraternal organization in the world, and they consistently answer that call when it comes to charitable needs. So thank you to John Schweitz and the Minnesota Masons. They are a phenomenal part of the show. When we come back here on Wooden Sticks, the great, the legendary, the awesome Tony Granato. We are back on Wooden Sticks, broadcasting as always today from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Very happy to be joined by a longtime friend of mine, the great Tony Granato. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. I laugh at that. The great Tony Granato. There's only one great, and that's Gretzky. All right. But
and you've got direct ties to him, which we're going to get to on the show. But before we get to the hockey stuff, you've got a lot of fans that are wondering how you're feeling dealing with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I know you're through the chemotherapy. How are you feeling, and what's the prognosis?
Well, Kev, thanks for asking. I'm doing really well. I finished 18 weeks of chemo and a month of radiation in late May. I finished. So I just had my 3-month checkup. Things are clean. The scans look good. The blood work was good. And the doctors told me I'm in remission and that I could go back to full activity. So I feel good. It's still going to take me a little bit of time to get the complete energy back after all that chemo and the drugs were in me, but I feel good. I'm looking forward to getting back to work on a regular basis with NHL Network and with the Blackhawks and the broadcasting side of things here in a little bit. So it's exciting, and thank you for asking. So I'm doing well.
We're going to continue to keep those prayers going your way, and to you and your family. I know it's been a battle, and I've watched you for years as a player, as a coach, and now a broadcaster. And the one word I always think of when I think of you is tough. And you were not built big and strong. You were small and scrappy, but you've always had that edge to your game. I want to go back to where it all began. I think of Downers Grove, Illinois, and I see all these talented hockey players directly in your family, from Cammy to Robbie, Donnie, yourself, Joey. Where did all this hockey come from when you were a little kid in Downers Grove? How did you migrate to the rink?
Yeah, well, Kev, I was lucky because, I'm oldest of 6. There were 5 of us born in 6.5 years or something. Cammy was the bottom end of the 5th. We all loved hockey, and that was just something that we did all the time. We come home from school, we go right in the basement and play. We were playing in the backyard. We were watching it whenever we could. We were at the rinks, going on the ice for open hockey. Like everything we did as a family, we all loved the same thing, and that was the game of hockey. And so to do that, your parents have to, recognize that and support it and give you that opportunity. So I think that's where we're really grateful, and was special was that our parents realized that, geez, our kids love this crazy game. And but it's keeping them out of trouble. It's something that they're doing together. And we did. And I think, Donnie, Robbie, and Cammy, and myself in particular, we would play 2-on-2 hockey every day. And that was so I was Cammy's team because she was the youngest one of the five. I'm the oldest, and Donnie and Robbie were squeezed in between us, and it was the Stanley Cup playoffs every day. And whether we were Blackhawks, whether we were the Olympians, we would have, okay, I'm Stan Mikita today, you're Tony Esposito, and then the next day we're Mike Eruzione and you're Jim Craig, and we just had kind of our fantasy little life of wanting to be hockey players when we were little kids, and fortunately for all of us, we were able to have special opportunities in the game of hockey all the way through. So I think we were just lucky and just recognized how much passion we had for the special game.
And Tony, all of us in the States, I think, were impacted profoundly by what happened in 1980 with the Miracle on Ice. You and I were just lucky enough to hang out with some of the players from that team. You introduced me that night to Mike Eruzione and that fundraiser for the ranch, but you end up going to prep school in Lake Placid. How much did the Miracle on Ice impact your decision to head all the way to Lake Placid to go to prep school?
Well, I was 14 at the time the Olympics. No, I was 15. I'm sorry. At the time the Olympics in 1980, and that impact of, because I didn't at that time. I'm growing up in Chicago. I really didn't even know there was international hockey, and all of a sudden, the Olympics are going on, and there's hockey going on, and we start to watch it a little bit, and then you start to recognize, okay, wow, this is a fun team to watch. And where do they come from? Well, they all came from college. They come from these different. So you're starting to learn about this team kind of as the Olympics were happening. There was no buildup. There was no publicity going into it. Hey, Mark Johnson's on this team. Hey, Neil Broughton's on this team. All these star college players are going to be on there. Nobody knew anything about them. I didn't, and I was a hockey player in Chicago. And all of a sudden, these guys were my new heroes, one. And two, what they did at that time, hockey was a Canadian sport. Let's not kid ourselves. Canada owned the game of hockey. It was their pride and joy. Baseball was ours, and maybe football, and some kids played hockey, and it was kind of cool, but it wasn't our national sport. It was Canada's national sport. So for the Americans at that time, to be able to go into the Olympics, especially it being in the United States, especially at the time it happened with all the world kind of stress that was going on with Russia and the United States and Iran and everything else. It was a really dynamic time for the Americans to look for and search for something to say, man, are we proud to be an American? And that was the greatest event that could have ever happened during that time. And what it did for us is it put the game of hockey on the map in the United States, because all of a sudden people that never watched hockey were watching the Olympic gold medal game. First they watched the Americans beat Russia, and then they watched them go on and beat Finland to win a gold medal. And all of a sudden these 20 young college kids were inspiration, not just from a sports thing, not just from a hockey thing, but from being an American, the pride that they showed in our country, and kind of everybody just kind of rallied around. And that opened up doors for all of us that followed. So the NHL all of a sudden said, okay, these college hockey American kids are bringing something to our game that maybe we're lacking: the enthusiasm, the energy, the passion that they play with. Maybe these smaller guys that aren't as physical and tough and didn't grow up on farms in Canada and aren't these big burly guys, maybe there's something to these college kids that maybe they can impact hockey. And so I think that opened up the eyes to a lot of Canadian, scouts and general managers, and all of a sudden, the Mark Johnson, Neil Broughtons, those guys, Kenny Morrow's, Mike Ramsey's, these guys are coming in the NHL and having impacts. Kenny Morrow, winning Stanley Cups and being the best players on their teams. And from that day forward, Americans all of a sudden got drafted consistently, and college hockey became kind of a prepping place for future NHL players. And so our game just continued to grow because of the impact that team had.
What was it like leaving home at that age and being in Lake Placid? I've been to that town. It is incredibly small for a place that hosted such a large event. How were those years for you and your growth, not only as a hockey player, Tony, but as a young man?
Well, I can tell you I was 17 when I left. I was I told you about the family and the relationships I had with my brothers and sisters and parents.
Yeah.
To go 1,000 miles away or whatever it was, 700, I don't know how many, but a long way. Whether it was I was no longer in the basement playing hockey with my brothers and sisters. I was no longer, in the car with my parents on the way to the games. I'm by myself. So just that part of it was really difficult. But when I got there and I was able to put on my Northwood Prep practice jersey and jump on the Olympic ice, that was our home practice rink, and I'm skating around the rink, and I could hear the vibrations of the USA chant. And every time I went running on that ice, no people in the stands, but I could still hear that electrifying sound of what it was like to be in that building for that Olympics and the gold medal game and all that stuff. I pictured where Herb Brooks was standing on the bench. I pictured where Mike Eruzione took his shot from went in to the game-winning goal. I just relived those things as a young player. So for that part of it, it was simply amazing. And so I that team had such an impact on me as a young player. And then to go into Lake Placid and do my high school dress in their dressing room and go on the ice. Every time I went to the rink, I felt like I was, part of that team or part of that moment, and that really helped in my development and my growth. But going away, and that was the original question, Kevin. It was so hard for me because I'm, standing in line for the payphone to call my parents and my brothers and sisters at night. There's not FaceTime. There's you're a long way away, and you don't get home until Christmas to see them. Obviously, my parents came out to see me a couple times during the year, but that was a big commitment for my parents to send me away, and I wanted to take advantage of it and make them proud and turn it into a college, scholarship or move on to college. And fortunately for me, after my time at Northwood, I was able to be ready to play college hockey and go to Wisconsin.
In all these years I've known you, I don't know the story. I don't know how many opportunities you had. What was the decision like to be a Wisconsin Badger, and what other schools were you looking at?
Well, Wisconsin's only 2 hours from where I grew up in Downers Grove. So that was the place that, as a young kid, I used to go play some tournaments in Madison and got to see some Badger hockey games. And I knew that college hockey was big in Madison. I watched Mark Johnson there before he went to the Olympics. I saw some 8,700 fans in the Dane County Coliseum as a little kid. And I thought, man, oh man, that's cool. I never thought I could get to that level when I was a little kid. But when I went out to prep school, I started to get recognition from colleges and lots of schools, which began the recruiting process. And the first time I got a letter from Wisconsin, I'm like, man, oh man, I got a chance to potentially go there. And so that was a dream. And again, it brought me close to home where my brothers and sisters and my parents and whatever, I could be with them. They could come up and enjoy the weekends and get back to the family part of it. So that was just a perfect place for me for lots of reasons. Bob Johnson recruited me my junior year in prep school. He tried to get me to come out a year early. So I knew right when I got to prep school that I had a chance to go to Wisconsin. And that's really where I was focused on, and it was going to be the place of my destination if it worked out. And then the other schools I went to, I visited Minnesota, I visited Boston College, I visited Michigan State. I talked to a lot of schools, but Wisconsin was really the one that if it worked out and they had room for me, I was going to be a Badger.
And I look at that old WCHA and the classic matchups. You mentioned the Dane County Coliseum, the old Mariucci Arena, the deck up in Duluth, and then I think about the personality. You mentioned Bob Johnson into Jeff Sauer, Doug Woog, Mike Sertich. We've lost him recently. All these coaches sadly have passed away, but the personalities that those coaches had and those teams had. I haven't even mentioned North Dakota yet.
Gasparini, yeah.
Oh, the rivalry, Stoney. It was just incredible hockey in that WCHA. And for you as a player, I can't imagine how much fun you had on every Friday and Saturday. Everywhere you went, it was packed, and it was the game in town. It's changed a little bit now. People have gotten a little more spread out. It's a different landscape in men's and women's sports at the college level. But back then, it was must-see TV. If you lived anywhere near a TV, you could watch WCHA hockey.
Yeah, Gorgie, I agree with you on that. Like I was lucky to play college hockey in that era, and really I recognize it as holy cow. You go into those buildings and you went into the old Mariucci and play a game in there, and the fans and the band and the cheerleaders. I mean, that was real college athletics, so I was grateful for my years there. The Duluth thing, you mentioned Mike Surdich. Mike recruited me when I was at prep school. I became really good friends with Mike all the way through the years. We both were dealing with cancer at the same time. Mike was a sensational human being, great coach, no question about that. I played for him on one U.S. Team in the summer. So I was lucky enough to have a really good rapport with him, and we're going to miss him because, like you said, he was part of those elite kind of iconic coaches in an era back in the 80s that was special for hockey. And they really, you look at that's, again, was it the Olympic team that kicked off and got college hockey to another level, and more American players wanting to play hockey because of the Olympic team? I think that was you mentioned the Olympic team right out of the gate, but everything that's happened in the game of hockey since 1980 has some sort of a connection with what the American team did for us and for our game. And unfortunately for us in the 80s there, college hockey became more popular because they realized, and the fans realized, and it got more attention because those schools were the ones that produced those Olympians.
I got to tell you a quick Mike Surdich story because you mentioned what a fantastic human he was, and I agree. Back in the mid to late 90s, I was coaching boys high school hockey and doing some state tournament stuff, both on TV and radio. So during the section playoffs, I took in a quadruple header at Aldrich Arena of these section playoff games, and I was there alone, and I bumped into Coach Surdich, and we sat and watched not only an afternoon, but an afternoon and an evening of high school hockey. And he pulled out a notebook and started telling me about his systems and how he coached at Duluth and how basketball and hockey were way more similar than any of us ever realized, and the zone defense. And I got to tell you, Tony, I was blown away and fascinated by the passion he had. And then after every period, he would like sit there and quiz me and ask me what I saw. You talk about a guy that just like loved the game of hockey. That's the guy I think of.
I agree. And, he also loved fishing, and I love fishing. So lots of the stories we've shared, up until his passing had to do with walleyes and, how many fish he got, what they tasted like when he buttered them up for dinner. But he was a very impactful man on lots of people. I'm glad you had the bump with him like that he could share not only his passion and his knowledge for the game of hockey, but really just the special person that he was. And I think that's the thing what hockey is special about. The people in our game. I say it on every time anyone asks me the question, what do you like most about hockey and what's happening in your life? I said the people that you've come across, and you realize the impact that so many have had on you in positive ways. It really makes our game, the game of hockey and the product on the ice is really special, but the people behind the scenes that are bigger than life than the just what they do on a bench or in a game is really the most impactful things that they do in people's lives. Surtees is certainly one of them. Bob Johnson was one of them. I had Jeff Sauer. I think the same of what Jeff meant to me. He passed a few years back. You look at Timmy Taylor. You look at lots of our former great coaches. Herb Brooks. I mean, another one, the 80 team. I mean, there's so many of those heroes that made our game better and helped shape the people of our game. I think that's a better way to thank them for their contributions, not just what the systems they put in and the coaching decisions they made, but really more so on how they were able to shape the people that were able to play for them and learn from them on that side of things.
Really well stated. I couldn't agree more. Lucky enough to know most of those guys in their time. And I look at your numbers at Wisconsin. Not surprisingly, you had a great go of it with the Badgers. You scored 100 goals in your 4 years there, so you know you're going to get a look at the next level. And here's a guy that likes to be an outdoorsman, fishes, Midwest guy, and now you get drafted by the New York Rangers, and you're going to the concrete jungle. What was that like?
Well, it was interesting. I'll tell you about another. So I used to go, and my family used to go. I was telling you about my parents and whatever. Our family vacations weren't to Disneyland or weren't on some, island with the beach and everything else. They were at hockey rinks. We'd pack our Stroh's van up, but we had a Stroh's van that everybody that went to hockey rinks knew what it was. My dad worked for Stroh's. He had this big van that had Stroh's on the side of it. And we'd load this van up with all our kids, all our hockey bags, and we'd show up at hockey camps in the summer for our summer vacations. And we spent probably 10 summers in a row up in Brainerd, Minnesota at Chuck Grillo's hockey school. And the reason I'm connecting this with the Ranger thing is Chuck was a scout of the Rangers and probably the guy that was most influential on me being a Ranger pick. And anyhow, when I do get drafted by the Rangers, it was obviously exciting. An NHL team knew who you were. That was the first thing I thought of was, wow, there's an NHL team that actually knew who I was. And back then, you weren't at the draft. Didn't have any, prep things leading up to it. The only thing I did is I filled out a questionnaire maybe a month before the draft, saying, my height, my weight, what I like to eat, just different, generic questions. And I'm like, man, oh man, okay, that's pretty cool. And but I got drafted at a draft in Montreal. I didn't find out till the next day when I got a call from a friend of mine that was in the Blackhawks organization that was actually the equipment manager. He called my dad and said, hey, why didn't you tell me Tony was going to get, eligible for the draft? We would have tried to draft him. And my dad goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, you got drafted by the Rangers last night. And so I found out the next day. And, I didn't play for the Rangers or didn't go to camp until basically I played one more year of one more year of high school, 4 years of college, and then an Olympic year. So 6 years after I got drafted, I didn't begin my NHL career till I was 23. And the reason that was so important, and I think it's important for young kids that aspire to be in the NHL that are really good players now, you're 18, 19, that's a tough league to play and join and jump into. And for me, I was undersized. I was probably 165 pounds my first couple years at college. I would have never been able to make the NHL physically, be able to handle the battles and the grind of it at 21 or 20. And so all those extra years of playing college and preparing myself. So when I got to a training camp, I was ready to compete with the big players of that time, the heavy, strong, tough, gritty players. And so the maturity and the development I got by staying those extra years gave me that opportunity. And in today's game, everybody's so anxious to leave college, to get to the NHL, to think you're ready. And my advice to all of them, I coached at college for 7 years at Wisconsin. We had probably 15 players leave early. And to be honest with you, 3 or 4 of them were ready. There were 10 or 11 of them that needed another year or two to be ready to step on an NHL rink and be ready to compete and understand what it would take to play pro hockey. And so that would be my advice to younger kids. I don't know why I got off on that tangent, but I think just from my career and what I've learned as a coach and what I learned through my playing career is you never can be over ready when you get to the NHL. But if you go in under ready, you might not ever make it. And so for young kids, Jimmy Snuggerud's a perfect example. Stayed at Minnesota. St. Louis is first round pick a couple years ago. They're banging on his door. We need you. You get ready. And Jimmy goes, I'm not quite ready yet. One more year for me at Minnesota is going to help me be more prepared. And so I really admire kids that are able to do that. Cale Makar, after he got drafted, third overall or second overall with Colorado, I'm going back for one more year. I need to work on this before I try my professional career. I think that is admirable because being patient is hard. Because of course we all want to wear an NHL jersey. We all want to, go back and say, hey, I'm on the LA Kings or the Pittsburgh Penguins, whatever it might be. But really, it's being patient. A lot of times is what really help you out. Unfortunately for me, I was able to play on an Olympic team after the college season and after my senior year. So I got that extra bonus year of development and really a chance to mature as a person and be ready for when I did get to New York.
Well, you were ready, and Chuck Grillo was looking pretty smart because the Rangers are, Tony, an original six franchise. They've been playing hockey for a long, long time. Your 36 goals you scored in your rookie season, that's still a record for an original six team. That had to make you feel like not only could you play at the NHL level, but now for a young player trying to prove himself, especially as you mentioned, an undersized player, um, you can be a big deal at the NHL level. That had to give you a ton of confidence.
It did. It did. But Kev, I look back on that, and yeah, I was an older. I went in. Brian Leach was a rookie with me that year. He was might have just turned 20, and I would have been 23. If I had tried to play in the NHL at 20, I would not have had 36 goals. I don't know if I would have been in the lineup. So again, being an older player and coming in a little bit more mature gave me the confidence. One, that gave me time to develop and grow through the Olympic team. I'm going to tell you about another guy in Minnesota area, Jack Blatherwick, the impact that he had on me on skating and strength and development during our Olympic year. He was our what would you call him? I don't want to say our skills coach, but he was our skating coach and our cardio coach. Cardio Jack was his nickname. If I didn't have Cardio Jack, I would not have been ready for an NHL thing. So I was blessed that so many people before I got to the NHL helped me and polished me up to be ready for that opportunity. And again, being a 22 or 3 or whatever, I don't know what exactly, but I was 22 or 23-year-old rookie in the NHL. I wasn't an 18 or 19-year-old kid like most. Joe Sakic was 18 or 19 when in that same year, and Joe was a sensational Hall of Fame career player. He was in Quebec that year as an 18-year-old, and it was tough for Joe as an 18-year-old. And he went on to be make things real easy as he moved forward. But had Joe started at 23 or 24, he probably had 70 goals that year. So I took advantage of some extra time to be ready, and because of that, I was lucky enough to have a really good year.
Well, this is Madison Square Garden, and then the media coverage in New York, as we all know, is completely different. How did you handle it? Honestly, how did you handle playing on that big stage? Because there is just something different about that arena, and certainly the coverage that team gets.
I first of all, I went again. I'm going to go back. I went with Brian Leach. We were rookies together, so we kind of shared the experience together. I had Guy Lafleur, Marcel Dion, Ron Greschner, Chris Nyland, just to name a few of the veteran players that when you walk into a new locker room, you're nervous. Are they going to accept you? Are they going to treat young guys differently? Are they going to be hard on you? What's it going to be like? And again, I'm going to go back to being a little bit older and a little bit more polished from the experiences that I had, with the Olympic team and different things to be ready for that. I knew my job was to quietly walk in there and respect those players and show them a ton of respect. So when I got there, I was shy and quiet, but I always would, listen and watch, and never once did I not appreciate that I'm in the same locker room as those guys, but I showed them the respect, and so did Leachy, and they took a liking to that. I mean, with Guy Lafleur, you meet Guy Lafleur and you say, hey, Guy, just, I'm so excited to be on the same team as you, blah, 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 and you just share, your love for him and what it means to be a teammate of his, and show him that respect. Hey, Tony, come with me. We're going out to dinner. And you start, they drag you in, and you're part of their team. They made me feel that really early and really fast. And as a young player, that's your job. Figure out how to be a great teammate, be accepted by the guys in your room, and things will be a heck of a lot easier for you. And those guys did that for Leachy and I. And because of that, when you go on the ice, then you're going to go through the wall for them. Your coach is going to appreciate what you're bringing to the table. And that's what I remember is just that locker room, on how great they were to a couple of young rookies and American kids. Both of us are American kids. That's still kind of in that, era where the American kids were trying to prove themselves. And Leachy was he was rookie of the year that year, sensational talent. And I came in there and I brought a little bit of energy to it and excitement to it, and some young some young legs to it, and those older guys, enjoyed it, and they accepted us, and they helped us. Which was made things so much easier and so much more fun for us.
So you go from that big market, and just a few years later, you get traded in that Bernie Nichols deal, huge trade with the LA Kings. Not only do you end up being a teammate of Wayne Gretzky, but as you and I both know, you end up being roommates with the great one. I still can't believe this recently. You guys had roommates because all the guys now have their own room. But how did that whole thing come down, and what was it like to experience your first time being traded?
Well, I think first of all, I loved every second I was in New York. So when you start with a franchise and you bragged up of the original six, Madison Square Garden, Ranger fans, the history and tradition that organization had, it's special. And when you're part of it, you want to be part of it forever. But you also realize that the part of our game is the fact that there's player movement regularly. And so to think that and to feel like, okay, I'm going to play all my career here in New York was probably not realistic. So you always kind of in the back of your mind going, man, oh man, okay, love to grind this out as long as I can in the city because I love it so much. But if it ever happens, the other place will be fun for whatever reasons. Well, when you get an opportunity to go play in LA at that time, especially with Wayne being there, especially the kind of excitement that the Kings were adding to the league, as far as okay, there's a warm city place, Los Angeles, California, that's going to become a hockey frenzied city that everybody's going to want to be part of. That's the time I went there. You had Luc Robitaille, you had Dave Taylor, you had Kelly Hrudey, you had lots of different personalities coming into the LA market. And all of a sudden, it isn't going to the red carpet show for the Grammys or Oscars or whatever. It's going to a Kings game that was the most exciting thing in LA. And I'm not exaggerating that. The LA Kings, because of Wayne Gretzky, was the ticket in town. And to go live that, be part of it, like you said, I was Gretz's roommate, I was his line mate. And to experience that was absolutely incredible. So I was lucky again. The Ranger thing, sensational. I loved it. And then I go to an organization like the Kings, which was, Bruce McDowell was our owner. Bruce McDowell wanted his thing in life is to get the best and to create some sort of excitement and business like thing different than everybody else. So what did we do? We signed all Larry Robinson, Hall of Famer, Yari Curry, Paul Coffey, Rick Tocchet. It can go on and the players that he added. So I got the chance to play with Grant Fuhr. I got a chance to play with all these Hall of Fame guys there. They were all towards the end of their career. But we put together a season in '93, just a couple years after the trade, where we lost to Montreal in the Stanley Cup Finals, and Patrick Waugh, in one of my greatest experiences as a player of having a chance to be alongside Wayne and the rest of the Kings and almost bring a cup to LA was really special.
Well, that leads me to a direct question. So let's go back to that 93 Cup because a very memorable cup for so many reasons. First of all, a Canadian team won it, and I think it's the last time that's
It's
happened.
the
But
last time that's happened, Kev.
crazy as that
I'm
sounds,
reminded of that every playoffs. Everybody comes in, and last year was the year that Edmonton almost won it. But every year they show the last team to win the Stanley Cup from Montreal or from Canada was the Montreal Canadiens in '93. So I relive that the start of every playoffs. That's the theme of the playoffs is this going to be the year a Canadian team finally wins a cup? So I see that often.
okay, you guys are up 1-0 in the series. You're leading game 2-1 fairly late, and we never see this. Like we never see this called. And I don't need you to throw your teammate under the bus here, but the illegal stick penalty on Marty McSorley, most would say that it definitely was a turning point in that series. You lived it. You played in the Stanley Cup, and you had a chance to go up 2-0 and take really a stranglehold of that series. How much did that call impact your team?
Okay, I've been asked that question a lot. The same thought goes through my mind. We like you said, we won game one. We played really, really well. Kelly Hrudey was playing great in net. The team was just probably playing its best hockey. Game 2, we have a great start. We're in control of the game. Really, in the third period, we're up 2-1, and we didn't give Montreal much. We played really stingy defensive hockey, which when you looked at our LA Kings team at that time, you said, well, man, they're all high-powered offense. They're going to have to win games 6-4 and blah, blah, blah. But no, Barry Melrose got us playing so well defensively. We were in control of that game and really frustrating Montreal. And I think, Montreal, calling the stick curve was their only thing that they thought they possibly could win that game or get back into the game, was to try something like that. So they did. We had, a minute I believe it was a minute 20 to go in the game to win a game and go up 2-0. Unfortunately for us and fortunately for them, they were able to take advantage of it. Breeze Bois scored his second goal of the game to tie it late in the game. I think there's 25 or 30 seconds to go in that game. And you asked, Marty, it was Marty's stick. So Marty was a sensational teammate, player, all that stuff, was playing great. There were other guys on our bench that had illegal sticks too. It just wasn't called. It was never called. You brought that up to start with. You don't see it very often. It's the first time I've seen it called in a game. I was 4 years into the league at that time. It's the first time I was in a game that was called. So it was a surprise. I got lots of different thoughts on should it have been called or shouldn't it have been called. How did they know it was illegal? Because there were lots of rumors that potentially
Right.
they were in our locker room the night before because we're in Montreal, and they measured all our sticks to see if we had illegal sticks. But the bottom line is, we were close. We had a great team, a great series. Montreal did just enough to win. We lost that game in overtime. We lost game 3 in overtime. We lost game 4 in overtime. And then Montreal beat us in game 5. So they won 4 games in a row. 3 of them were heartbreakers in overtime that all those games could have won either way. I mean, Patrick Waugh made some saves in overtime and some saves during that game to keep Montreal in it that were sensational. Kelly Rudy was great in our net. So it was a sensational playoff series, a memorable one for lots of reasons. But I always say this too. I think of our team as a champion team as well. I think we didn't get a Stanley Cup ring. We didn't get to celebrate carrying a cup around on a parade in LA. But if I look at the locker room, I look at the guys I played with, I consider us a championship team for what we did and how we did it.
I can't argue it. That series to get you to the Cup with Toronto is one of the all-time great playoff series in the history of the National Hockey League. And I can't even imagine, with Wayne Gretzky and with those two hockey meccas back-to-back in these series, Toronto and Montreal, to live that, Tony, as a player who just loved the game like I know you did, that had to be more than just a dream come true.
Well, the other 2 series we played before those 2 was Calgary and Vancouver. So we had 4 straight series for Canadian markets. So not only is it, obviously we talked earlier about it being Canada sport, but our travel from LA to those places, and it's not quite as easy to travel as it is today with how they do it now. We did have a charter plane that Bruce McDonald had, but when we flew back from Montreal, we had to stop for fuel on the way back. So our flights home from Montreal were, probably 7 or 8 hours from the time we took off till the time we landed back in LA. And we had those series the whole time. We had to go through customs every time we went to play a game in Canada. On the way back, we'd have to go through customs. So the travel amount of miles that we traveled, and they made a big deal about the series last year with the Edmonton and Florida series about the miles traveled. If you total the amount of miles that we flew that playoff series, the LA Kings, it blows away any other team in the history of the NHL on miles traveled. So that was another factor as that series went along. The fatigue part of it, where Montreal had, I think they had the Islanders, they had all teams out east. They were all in the same time zone until they played us. So they were all less than an hour travel for them. And so that was a little bit of a I don't want to say factor because that would be making an excuse, but it was the travel part of it was unique. Let's just say it was unique.
Yeah, it certainly added to the challenge that you guys were up against. And when the momentum switched, trying to get that back, when you factor that in, certainly played a role. I got to really quick dovetail back to Wayne Gretzky because, you mentioned the impact of the '80 Olympics and on all of us, but Wayne Gretzky at that time was breaking into the league and really was the face of the league, and right away became arguably the greatest player in the history of the game. So you lived through that, and part of that time you were a teenager. So when you get to LA and you find out that you're on his line and you're his roommate, how do you get over that? Because I can't imagine for a young player how intimidating that might have been.
I think because of the experiences I had going into it, I was a little bit more ready for it than you would think. From my Olympic experiences, from meeting Mike Eruzione and Mark Johnson, meeting all my heroes from the American side of things earlier. And the funny part about it is the year before the trade, Brian Leach and I were in Toronto for the NHL award ceremonies, and Wayne obviously was there for his 10 awards or whatever he won that year. And Brian and I are there, and Brian goes, "Hey, we got to get a picture with Wayne." And I said, "Oh yeah, that'll be cool." I said, "Okay, go ask him. I'll get someone." We had cameras back then, not phones to take pictures. So we got one of our parents to say, "Hey, come on, we're going to ask Wayne for a picture." And I said, "Leachy, go ask him." He said, "No, you ask him." So there goes your example about how much respect we had from. We were too shy to ask Wayne Gretzky for a picture, but finally, Leachy says, "Since you're older, Tony, you ask him." So I said, "Okay." So I go over there and I said, "Hey, Wayne." And he turns around and he says, "Hey, Tony. Hey, Brian. Nice to see you guys. Great year. Congratulations." So again, go back to the thing. Wayne Gretzky knew who I and Brian was. That was a huge moment.
Oh,
In our, wow, holy cow! And sure enough, Wayne smiled. I got the picture on my desk. I'll save that forever. And we took that picture. And so I got to meet Wayne that one time. But then when I got traded there, became his roommate. Within 2 seconds of being his roommate, I'm like, Wayne Gretzky's just like all my other teammates. He's an unbelievable human being. He's fun. And then I got the privilege of every single day of my 3 or 4 years that I room with him, of laying in the room and listening to his expertise, his version of what happened in the game, which was so different than any other one I've ever heard. You've heard him on the broadcast now, and you listen to him and you go, "Oh my gosh, I never thought of that. I've been in the game for this many years, and I never thought of thinking that through like that." He is the smartest and the most sharing person of what and how he sees the game and what had happened on the ice and on the bench and in the locker room. He's very, again, easy to listen to, easy to talk to, and easy to become a friend of. He's again, I'm very blessed. I can't be thankful enough for that opportunity. And I'll give you one more example. So this will explain Wayne for to the people that, okay, Wayne's a great player and you see him on TV every now and then. Seems like a nice guy. Well, he is such a hockey fan that in the 2018 Olympics, we're playing in Pyeongchang for the U.S. team, and I'm coaching that team, and we got a bunch of players besides Brian Gianta, unknown players to American fans and to hockey fans, because they were all non-NHL players. So we got a bunch of guys playing from Europe, a few college players, some guys playing from the minors. We put together this team to play in the Olympics. So it's not your headline name players on your team that you would go watch a Gretzky and a Crosby, whatever. It's kind of a bunch of no names. So who's up in the middle of the night in Los Angeles watching these games? Well, Wayne Gretzky is. So our games would end LA time sometimes 6 in the morning. So you're playing from 3 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the morning. After every game, I got a text from Wayne. And it would say, "Tony, I really like your team. Good luck. You're playing great. Keep it going. You guys got a chance," whatever it was. So we finish the Olympics, and we lose in a shootout. And we get knocked out of the Olympics in a shootout. Had we won that game, it was the quarterfinals, we would have went to the semifinals, which would have meant there were 4 teams left. And of those 4 teams, 3 of them win medals. So we were a shot away or a save away, whichever you want to say it, from that shootout of advancing. Well, not many people realize how close we were to that opportunity, but sure enough, the game ends. I'm walking into the locker room after I take a look at my phone, and it's Wayne Gretzky. And the second the game ended, no, actually, he was calling. I'm looking at my phone; it's lighting up, and it's Gretz calling. and I can't answer because I'm walking into the locker room. I got to address the team. So I get done with the team, and I'm going down to the media, and I call him. And before I go to the media, I said, Gretz, what's up? And he told me everything about how proud I should be of those players, how special they were, how they represented the United States in a way that he's so proud to have American kids, all this thing. And I'm like, Gretz, what the heck are you doing at 6 a.m. thinking? And that's Wayne Gretzky. That's who he is. So that moment to me and the Olympic thing was fantastic, but getting that call and being able to go back into the locker room, I didn't put him on speakerphone. I just said, Gratz, will you do me a favor? Can you text me what you just said to me so I can show our players how proud that everybody is back home of what they just did? And I did. I got the phone. I passed it around to all the guys. See Gretz's thing. So that kind of sums up. We can talk about his ability to see plays and make plays and be the best player of all time, and offensively especially. But really, the person and the recognition of what needs to be done and said as far as representing our game and teaching young people and players on how to be. Wayne has exemplified that, and I'm going to double up on that and follow through with Sidney Crosby, because Sidney is the next Wayne Gretzky, or is the person that represents our game like Wayne did. Wayne taught Sid learning through listening to stories, watching, setting the example, and that's how Sid has carried on to being the face of our game for so long in such a respectful way that he teaches other youngers, including Connor Bedard and hopefully including Connor McDavid, hopefully Celebrini and all these other young stars that are coming into our game, that there's more responsibility to your being an NHL star than just scoring goals and helping teams win. And Wayne and Gordie Howe before him and John Beliveau and whoever else before him, that's what superstars do. They don't just worry about putting pucks in the net and winning games. They worry about setting an example of what our sport means and what you have to take on when you do become an NHL player or NHL star.
I'm going to wrap things up with this because I'm so glad you brought up Sid. And I knew this was going to happen, Tony. I got through about a third of the placard of bullet points and things I wanted to chat with today with you. But we'll come back. We'll have a part 2 during the hockey season. It'll be great, and it'll give us something to look forward to. But you mentioned Sid. You coached him and Flower in Pittsburgh. And so after COVID, interviewing the opposition in regional broadcasts has kind of gone away. But I've been doing this for 19 years, and I can tell you, there's been multiple times in our broadcast as a Minnesota Wild broadcaster where I've asked for Sidney Crosby. Now, to put this in perspective for our listeners, when you ask a team for a player and you're broadcasting in another place, most of the time, all the players say no, but you never get any of the star players unless there's a direct connection to Minnesota. Like if we get a former Gopher, that's one thing. To ask for Sidney Crosby, if you didn't know the guy, it'd be preposterous. But we've asked for him multiple times. He's come out and done the interview. He's been unbelievably cordial. And after every interview, when the camera's turned off and we're off the air, he looks at me, and every time he's thanked me for having him. And, literally, I got to tell you that it blew me away the first time, and it's happened multiple times. I think that kind of tells you all you need to know about this guy off the ice.
And it doesn't surprise me. Like you said, I was with him for 5 years. I watched it. I watched him go out of his way, like I watched Wayne go out of his way to do little things that he would recognize that nobody else would recognize. If Wayne was in a locker room or Sid was in a locker room, and he saw a parent on the other side of the room kind of being shy, and he'd walk over there and say, "Hey, Mr. So-and-so, come on in. Come and hang out with us." He just knew, they both know. They got that extra sense. They got that extra sense on the ice. They got the extra sense off the ice to just doing what's right to make people feel and understand how important they are too. And so I'm not surprised by Sid. I still keep in touch with him. I still text him all the time. I love telling him little things like that. He's humble and just ignores them both those guys are the same. You try to tell them, how special they are and on all the little things they do, and they don't want to hear it. but you keep reminding them, telling them, and you just basically want to say thank you for representing our game and being a person that you can brag about. I hate, we could brag about those guys both on what they do on the ice, but everybody knows and sees that. It's the part off the ice that we see and that you just saw with Sid's interviews. If you did this thing with Wayne, he'd do the same thing to you. They just get it, and that's it goes back to what we talked about earlier when we were talking about the coaches with Surdich and Sauer and Johnson and Brooks and all those guys. It's the people of the game that make our game so special. That's why we have so much pride in it. That's why you're still in the game 19 years doing your thing. That's why I'm 60 years old. I can be on a boat fishing right now. No, I want to be in a hockey rink and be in my environment with the people that I love being around. And I think that really kind of sums up what the hockey world's all about.
All right, final segment is the hat trick hot seat. 3 quick questions for Tony Granato. There's no wrong answer. Just want to kind of go behind the curtain a little bit with you off the ice. We'll start with, we've got listeners that live in the Midwest. A lot of them are going to take trips to Chicago in the next few months. Give us your favorite Chicago restaurant recommendation for folks that might be heading down there in the near future.
Oh my gosh, one favorite Chicago restaurant.
I know it's hard to pick one.
Rosebud Cafe, Italian. Or Tufano's. Go to Tufano's. Joey, my buddy Joey that runs Tufano's would be really happy with me. Tufano's.
All right, because Rosebud's awfully good.
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Best vacation spot that you've ever been to? I know as a kid you guys went to the rink, but yeah, as an adult, maybe.
I can't say the hockey rink or hockey school because my wife would get mad at me on that one. So what's the place you go far away and you stay on the water? You stay on the water in those little cabanas.
Jamaica?
No, it's like 24 hours away. I can't think of it. Some exotic place, way, way, way. It takes you 2 days to get there.
So you want to be on the water, you want to be in a cabana, and you want to just kind of.
I want my wife to be smiling, away from a hockey rink and away from the people of hockey, where she's just her and I. She likes that warm water. Yes, I will. On our next time, you say you're bringing me back for a second part. I'll get the name because she's going to be mad at me that I could forget the name of the place we went to. But yes, it's water, beach, nature, I guess. Because yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm most curious about this one. Your very first concert you attended. I want to know the venue and I want to know the band, Tony.
Well, everybody identifies me as a former Kiss groupie guru type thing. So it would be the band Kiss. It would be my buddy Frankie Provenzano was my teammate. We went to probably 15 to 20 Kiss concerts, took pictures. Everything. And I got a picture that I'll show you with Mike Yo, Dan Baalsma, Todd Reardon. We went to see him when we were in, not Todd Reardon wasn't in it, I'm sorry, Ray Shiro. Ray was in there. I brought Jills Malash. Now all these Minnesota ties now.
My guy, Jilly.
I knew somebody that was part of the band, and I brought them to a concert at the old Igloo. And we saw Kiss, and we went down before the concert and actually took a picture with the band.
Come on.
No, it's true. It's on. I'll send you that photo.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I would love to see that photo. If you haven't, please share it. I can definitely text that one to Mike Yo and give him some grief there. That would be fabulous. Tony, this has been beyond any expectation I had. I knew it'd be fun. You were terrific. Really enjoyed just all the great stories today. Thank you for opening up and sharing those stories here on Wooden Sticks.
I appreciate that, Kev. Thank you. Thanks for all you do for the game, and we will see you in a rink soon.
Can't wait to see you very soon in a rink, probably in Chicago. Might even be during the preseason. I'll be back after this quick break to put a wrap on the show. Okay, we're back, and that was a lot of fun. And I wish I could have gone longer. I try to keep these shows to no more than an hour, but that just gives us an excuse to bang on his door here once the hockey season gets going. So many things we didn't get to. I know that Alex Goligoski, a guy that just recently retired, Minnesota guy, won a Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh, played for the Wild. I know Tony has immense respect for the Goose. I wanted to get his thoughts on him. I want to dig deeper into coaching guys like Marc-Andre Fleury and Sidney Crosby. This likely will be the Flowers last year. I guess we don't know for sure, but it's likely going to be his last year. And I know that Tony and Marc-Andre had a tremendous and still have a great friendship. In fact, when we were in Chicago at the tail end of last year during the regular season, and Tony was in the middle of his chemotherapy, Marc-Andre Fleury searched him out when we were at the rink before that game and spent about 15 minutes talking to Tony and finding out how things were going and trying to figure out if he could do anything to help him and support him along the way. They've got a great friendship. So wanted to get into that. Never got into the whole stint in San Jose where he won the Bill Masterton Trophy after the 96-97 season. And then now that he's kind of gone from being a coach, I wanted to get into the broadcasting side of things, that he's, doing work with Chicago and the NHL Network. And still, I want to get back to some of the coaching stops along the way. He was behind the bench when the Wild and the Avalanche met in that epic series in 2003. And so he's been on both sides of the Patrick Waugh playoff ledger. I think at its peak, a young Patrick Waugh basically taking over that run in 1993 to lift the Habs to that Stanley Cup over the Kings where Tony played with the great one. And then on the back end of his career, I really felt that he struggled in that series in 2003. In fact, the combination that the Wild had in Rolison and Fernandez dramatically outplayed the Hall of Famer in Patrick Waugh. Just another example of how NHL playoff hockey can fool any pundit who had that on their bingo card before the 2003 playoffs, that a tandem of Rolison and Fernandez would outduel the Hall of Famer and Cup champion in Patrick Waugh. But that's how it played out. And Tony was behind the bench for that. So many other areas we could have got into, didn't have time to today. And I'm super happy to hear that he is continuing to kick the ass of cancer. And we will all, as tight-knit hockey fans, wrap him up and pray for him and his family as he continues that battle with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And as you got to feel a little bit during this conversation, the passion he has for the game and how much he cares about doing everything the right way is kind of what sets Tony apart as a great player, but more importantly, just a fantastic human being. So looking forward to that part two when we get to that during the season, and looking forward to getting over to a Wild training camp here in another week. We've got our media day a week from Wednesday. We're recording this on a Thursday, so we're within a week to that. And then I think our first broadcast on Bally Sports North is scheduled for the 25th. So we're going to have a preseason game for you down in Dallas. So it's all coming quick, and we'll have some cool content during training camp here on the show as well. Thank you for listening. Mostly thank you to Tony Granato for being a part of the show. This is Wooden Sticks here on the Talk North Podcast Network.